This episode is brought to you by Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard of Anchor, you should definitely check them out. It's a super easy tool that anyone can use to create and distribute their podcast. It has everything you need, and you can do it all from your computer or even your phone. Need your podcast cover art? There's a tool. Music and sound effects? They have you covered. Want to record on the fly? It's easy with the app. Now you may be saying to yourself, I already have a podcast. No worries, just create your account, upload, and publish to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Looking for some walking around money? Anchor connects you with advertisers who match your brand. It's a one-stop shop for all of your podcasting needs. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
You're listening to BizQuik. This is where Julie and Corey provide quick and useful information to small business owners. BizQuik is the podcast where small business owners get to showcase their businesses and receive expert advice and guidance in areas many entrepreneurs struggle with. And you, the listener, get solutions, tips, and tricks on real-world topics that many small business owners face. Julie and Corey are the experts small businesses hire when they need solutions. And the BizQuik podcast is just one way they deliver those solutions. Let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to BizQuik. I'm Julie.
And I'm Corey.
And today we have brothers Joe and John Degroff on the show. They are from, they run Degroff Finanacial, and they're out of Hurricane, West Virginia, which I feel like we're going to talk about that little town. But before we bring them on the show, we are going to talk about retirement planning.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation with them. I don't really know what to expect, but talking about financial planning, especially retirement planning, I think is a good topic now, considering the year that everybody's had and small business owners in general. The retirement is rarely on their mind because it's all about making money now and surviving now and not thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, I wonder how many small business owners in 2020 knocked out most of their retirement, and not because the stock market took it, but because they took it to live.
Well, not only that, and then there's people like myself where I cleaned out my entire savings so I can open up a restaurant this year. That's my retirement plan.
Yes.
To work the rest of my life.
Yes. Well, I still think it's a good plan, and it'll pay dividends, but a little scary though, nonetheless, right?
I mean, yes and no. It's not everything that's within my control. I'm not concerned about. It's just there's always unknowns that you can't plan for.
Sure. Well, I think one of my favorite things about you is that you're extremely risk tolerant, right?
Correct.
So you are not afraid to take a risk on something and then you'll bet on yourself every day of the week. So I think you'll be fine, but it's still scary. How do you think most people, let me back up. A couple years ago, I heard a statistic. It wasn't that long ago. I heard a statistic that like 80% of people over the age of 55 didn't have a single dime saved for retirement.
Over 55?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's scary, right?
That is. Yeah,
because, I mean, I think for a long time, a lot of people thought that the government would take care of them with Social Security. But you can't really live on Social Security unless you're going to eat cat food.
Yeah, I mean, even with Social Security, you need something to lean back on, or at least, let's say, own your home so you can knock out some significant, own your home outright so you can knock out like those significant budget expenses like a mortgage.
Sure, and then get good at gardening.
Yeah, and fixing your own house as things break.
Yes, because you want to grow your own food, fix your own shit, and also, like, really, I think the most important thing that you can do for your retirement, this might be controversial, Corey, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it anyway because I'm feeling controversial today. Taking care of your health.
Or you could not take care of your health and just end it earlier. So your savings don't have to last as long.
Well, that's always an option. And I feel like we got a lot of people in this country that are going down that path,
True,
right?
True.
But, I mean, you can either pay attention to your health now or pay attention to it later. And I know this is not a health-focused podcast, but health becomes expensive in your older years because, doctors and big pharma are pushing all of this medicine and drugs on you, and you're just, need procedures and whatnot. So
Sure, and it just like a savings account, the longer you wait to start taking care of yourself, the harder it is to actually get ahead.
yes, that is a really, really well stated point. So what do you think is the most, for you personally, what's your opinion on what's the best way to save for retirement?
Build a strong business that I know that's going to make me enough money that I can lay back on later. I mean, right, because right now that's what it is. Like I said, I cleared out my 401k. I took every penny I could find in savings, and that's all getting dumped into the restaurant. Again, it's not like I'm taking it to Vegas and putting it all on black. It might seem that way to some people, especially those who are a little more risk adverse. But the notion there is that hopefully, if everything goes well and everything within my control will. I can't control another pandemic, obviously, as much as I think that I can. But the idea there being that within a couple of years, that investment that I put into this restaurant will have paid itself back and then some, and then I can either reinvest that into another restaurant, which is the plan, or if I'm happy as is, I can just start saving money then.
Yeah. So am I responsible for your income for a significant portion of 2021? Do I have to sell extra hard on SB Pays?
That should have been the plan since March of 2020.
That's fair.
But no, yes and no. The fun part about investing in a business and taking out loans and all of that fun stuff is in the budget, I have paying myself as a part of that. So I'm essentially taking out a loan so I can pay myself back. So I'm paying myself with interest, but starting a couple months before the actual open date, I'm going to have to be working full time on the restaurant, and I'm not going to be able to be, working on anything else. So I'm going to have some sort of income coming in. So that's just going to get paid out of, out of the working capital that we have for the restaurant. And then hopefully we'll get open real quick so that I can start actually making money.
Yeah. And I do want to point out for any of our listeners who also happen to be clients or prospective clients that, you've probably heard us talk a lot recently about Corey and the amount of work that he's going to be doing in the restaurant, and that he's going to be pulling back from SB Pace. But that does not mean that SB Pace is going anywhere or that we're not going to be still servicing our clients. We have a strategy built for that we've been working on all along. And I think sometimes I get a little nervous that we talk about the restaurant a lot lately, which is good because it's this very big and important thing. But sometimes I hope it's not at the expense of people thinking that we're not doing things for SB Pays, because we are, and we're fully equipped and ready to still continue to service our clients and take on new clients. We just have a little bit of a different process in place once your availability starts to dip and diminish with the work as the work of the restaurant ramps up.
Yeah, that's right. Julie's going to become a finance expert.
That's not happening. That's not happening. Maybe today's podcast is really us interviewing Joe and John Degroff to see if they can become our finance experts. We don't know. You don't know what's going to happen at SB Pace. We're always making changes. So, all right, we probably need to wrap up and bring in Joe and John and start this exciting conversation that we have no idea where we're going to go with.
Let's do it. We'll see you in a second.
Perfect.
We wanted to take a quick break to tell you about our newest course called Timebomb. If you're ready to take control of your calendar, this course is for you. We guide you through all the steps you need to understand where you're spending your time, what your time is worth, and how to build out your days and weeks so that you can add more value to your business or just spend that time enjoying life. We have 3 options for you. The course, a bundle which includes products designed to help you become more efficient with your time, and a boot camp where you'll get time in a small group setting to get the personalized help you need. Head on over to sbpace.com to learn more. Timebomb. Take control of your calendar, gain control of your life.
Welcome back to the show. We've got Joe and John Degroff with us. And I have been schooled. It is not Hurricane, West Virginia. It's Hurricane, West Virginia. So I now know. And they are from Degroff Financial. You can probably tell by the name, it's their business. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you.
Yeah, we're excited to get into talking about retirement and get all your thoughts on that. But if you wouldn't mind, just give us like a quick background so we know who we're talking to and why we're talking to you.
Yeah, well, I'll open up. So I'm Joe, and so I started Degroff Financial in 2016, and kept trying to pull John along for a little while. He had another engagement that he was working on, but he came very soon after. And basically what we did is we started building Degroff Financial because we saw the way that things were done in the industry. We both worked in the industry for, I don't know how long.
Time.
Yeah.
10 years at the time.
Yeah, 10 years at the time apiece. And we just saw all of these ways that business was done, that financial planning was done, that didn't really make a whole lot of sense made sense from a business standpoint, but it didn't really make sense from a client standpoint. And so we just wanted the opportunity to step away and say, I don't want to be bound by what everybody says the way that I have to do business. And I want to do it the way that I know needs to be done to be able to help clients. And so, yeah, that started in 2016. John came along in 2017, and here we are, 5 years later, just going out trying to make things better in the industry, help our clients and find improvements and all of that good stuff.
I don't have anything to add to that. Perfect. That pretty much covered it. So
What's crazy is I thought always that John started Degroff Financial and then brought Joe in. So I look at you guys are educating me all over the place today.
I'm still not sure which one's which.
I'm done. Yeah, Joe, actually, we kind of got together and had the idea. Like, he kind of brought some thoughts to me, and I kind of added, some thoughts to it. And we were real close to both of us pulling the trigger when I kind of got cold feet and backed out. And
you had other things going on. So John and I we spent all that time in the industry together. And so for years we had been going back and forth on, why are things this way? It should be this way, it should be that way. And, when you're young and dumb, you're just trying to figure things out. And, so it took a while. So it was just, I started it first, but it was just because he had stuff going on, but we're where we need to be now. But yeah, the point is, the vision at this point is, a lot of times we set up the way the financial industry sets up people's finances and sets up our expectations on finance is such that, like, money is this goal that if we just have enough of it, then one day everything's going to be okay. And it just doesn't work out. It's not practical planning from a standpoint of any sort of practicality. It doesn't make sense. It also leads to emotional decision-making with our money. And we all know when you go to make emotional decisions, you're never going to make the right ones, or rarely going to make the right ones. And so this whole planning model, it just doesn't really make sense for helping facilitate people's financial well-being over the long term. And I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So that's why we started Degroff Financial, because we want people to use their money to help them not just live their life, but to push them forward in their life. Money is supposed to be a driver that pushes us towards our goals. It's not the goal itself that one day, hey, I've got this much money. Okay, great. Good for you. Let's give you a cookie and a big round of applause. It's about, what do you do with it, and how does that money help push you forward to your goals? And so it creates a different type of planning, a different type of decision-making model than simply saying, how much money do you want for your retirement? Let's just put money in your retirement account and hope for the best.
Yeah, so much has changed in how we view retirement as a whole. A lot of people, I've said this, a lot of people our age, your guys' age, don't necessarily follow that same model of just working for 40 years and then getting the gold watch and the Taurus and moving on their merry way, right? And so if retirement has changed, then retirement planning needs to change as well. And we just haven't necessarily got there as an industry. Everybody trying to do the exact same things, regardless of what your goals are, what your objectives are. That was really the driver. One of the big drivers behind what we did is we can't plan exactly the same way for every client. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And I really like that approach, just the non-cookie cutter approach to most things, because there's no such thing as a one size fits all when it comes to anything. Even the things that are sold as one size fits all, they don't really fit all. So that concept of changing the way that you approach per client, like crafting it per client, is great. So what are you when you talk to somebody and you're trying to talk them out of using a 401k or some of the traditional stuff, like how are you, what are you doing? Like, what conversations are you having?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. First off, I'm not personally, we all have different personalities, how we try to do things. I'm not a combative individual, and I'm not in the business of talking people out of things. I like to start at the beginning and work step by step. So what I like to do is explain those steps, and I like to explain where retirement planning fits into it, because certainly I'm not going to tell people not to plan for retirement. That would be foolish. There's simply going to be a reality that we might not be as physically healthy as we are at 35 years old. So there's going to be a time, very likely, that we may need to slow down. Mm-hmm. And in that, we need those funds. So I would never say, let's not plan for retirement. But what I would say is we can't plan for retirement at the expense of looking at the rest of our life. So, what I do is I just start at the beginning with people. The first place is, so we have a 4-phase process called our Enlivening Money process. It's got phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And phase 0 is really about, first off, stabilizing people's finances. It's about getting that foundation under you, making sure that your cash flow is actually working for you. A lot of times we don't know what's coming in, what's going on, what's going out. One of the first clients John and I met with together when we started working together, they had like a $600,000 annual income. So they're pulling in $50,000 a month, and they are talking to us about selling their assets, selling their home. And, we're just sitting here talking, trying to figure out what's going on. And what it boiled down to is they didn't know what they had coming in and what they had going out. Certainly wasn't that they didn't make enough money. It was just they didn't know what was coming in and going out. And so, I use that example because a lot of times people think that more money is the answer. Well, if I just was making more money, then everything would be okay. But that's not always the answer. So our phase 0 process is first about making sure that we've got good foundations. We know what's coming in. We know what's going out. It's organized. It's clear. You've got a handle on what's going on with your money. And then from there, phase 1 is really about building risk management, managing what your potential risks are, because you can't build wealth if that wealth is constantly going to be taken away from you because you're not properly managed risk. So you have to protect what you're going to be building, or else everything you're building could be wiped away in a moment. So phase 1 then is really about risk management. And phase 2 then is about beginning to develop your longer term financial assets, like retirement planning. So as far as when I'm talking to clients, again, I'm not here to persuade somebody one way or another, get combative with them. It's simply, where are you in the process? Here is the process of here's how we want to get things done. And there's no reason to skip steps unless there is a reason. And if there is, enlighten me. And if there's not a reason, then let's not do it, because it doesn't make fiscal sense to do so.
Real talk.
I would add to that as well, that becomes the entire issue with how we do this cookie cutter planning, how everybody does this cookie cutter planning, because what you have is people that haven't taken care of their phase 0 needs. They're struggling to live. They're living paycheck to paycheck, or they're having late fees from time to time, or every once in a while an overdraft fee, or they have to stop spending money on Wednesday because Friday isn't here yet, right? But they might be putting 6, 8, 10, 15% in their 401k. So as Joe talked about, making retirement decisions at the expense of the rest of their life, the lifespan there. That's what we see. People are just doing things in the wrong order. And so we talk a lot about, these phases, it's sequential finance, right? Like we have to be very intentional about not just what we're doing with our money, but when we are doing it. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we're not the only people talking this way, but I think that it's something that the people that do it the way that we do it are just very different in the industry, because everybody I've seen it today. These people that aren't taking advantage of their company matches are idiots. Well, it's not necessarily true.
It's just not that simple. And that's one thing that I really have a contention with when we get into finance. It's like there's these polarizing arguments that people have. Like it's the only way. If you don't do it this way, it's like you're anathema and you're going to financial hell because you didn't obey the right way. And it's like there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of ways to make things work. And the thing about it is like everybody has different personalities. And for me, like the way that you manage your money is very much in line with your personality, and so the decisions that you make have to line up with that. So for instance, like how much money somebody keeps in their checking account, if we're talking about phase 0 cash flow kind of things. Well, if you're more of a propensity to save money, then you can have more money in your checking account. If you have more of a propensity to spend what's in there, then certainly you don't want to keep more money in there, right? So there's all these decisions that are very much based upon our personalities. And what we find so much in the industry is that people it's just arguments. It's like, if you don't do it this way, then you're bad. And like, sometimes it's just not that simple. Sometimes there's other reasons for choosing to not do something or to do something. Just the way it works.
Yeah. So I have a question that's a little tongue in cheek, and then I have a much more serious question. I want to know if there's a phase 0 because you started with phase 1 and then realized you were missing a step in your framework.
I actually want to tell this because it's a good story. So I teach financial planning at a university level. So at West Virginia University, I teach both the precursor or the personal finance course, kind of the basics, and then the advanced financial planning course. So when they had given me this course, basically I was given the course materials on Friday and told that I start teaching on Monday. Like here, we don't really, go have fun basically. And so what I looked at like that weekend was like, okay, this material is garbage. It's not good material. I'm going to throw it out the window and basically create my own content. And so I've done that for the last few years. So in a few years of teaching the course, I had developed this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And so it was April?
Last April.
Yeah, it was last April because it was right in COVID. John drove up to my house and we were going over just some of where we need to go for the business. And we just had this conversation. I was like, hey, I've got something in my lectures about this. And so I downloaded it and it was, it was our phases. And John's like, this is it, except for it's missing something. So basically just what you said. And it was like, yeah, because some people aren't prepared to make long-term decisions. Yeah. And so like phase 1 starts with making these foundational risk management decisions. But we had clients that just weren't in positions to be able to make long-term decisions. Mm-hmm. So John's like, what do we call it? Like phase 0? And I was like, actually, that sounds really awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's the first thing I thought of when you said phase 0. I was like, oh, they originally had a 3-phase process. And then they had to bring in that 4th step. And also, Joe, is teaching at the University of West Virginia really university teaching? I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
That was a dig. Listen, if you can't say West Virginia University instead of the University of West Virginia, then you don't get to make that dig.
Right.
You're right, because I know it's West VU. Yeah, you're right.
And nobody calls it West VU either.
There's Virginia.
I do. I always do. Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna take it. I have been educated again. All right,
and she's not even the hokey of the two of us.
That's good. That's good.
Yes. So okay, here is my more serious question. This talking about finances is such a vulnerable and personal thing for people, right? Yes. And you have such a non-traditional approach to how you help people think about and see their financial situation. Do you find that to be an easier entry point with people to get them to talk about finances, right? Because I feel like if I was in just a really like uncertain, if I was not clear what I was doing, if my finances were just a, category 5, like mess, I would be really comfortable talking to you two, because your approach is basically like, it's almost as if, and I know this isn't what you're saying, but it's almost as if you're saying, look, the system and the way that as a society we teach people to think about money, it's jacked up. And so let's reframe the conversation and like start from scratch, which makes it much easier for people to accept, dude, this is hard. Like, and talking about tough financial situations is really hard for people, right? So can you talk about that a little bit and the impact you have with that?
Sure. It is a different entry point for sure. And one thing that I don't, this is something we've been talking about a lot over the last week, is because we're getting ready to release a Phase Zero online program, shameless plug. But
you can do that at the end of the show, guys.
But we don't ever want to correlate Phase Zero with a mess or being poor or anything like that, because it's irrelevant what income level. I mean, as we talked about, we talk to people that are making, well into 7 figures and all of that, and it's just a phase that we have to get a better control of things. You don't have to be out and not have any clue what's going on whatsoever. Phase Zero is about cleaning out the financial junk drawer. Okay. Everybody's got that junk drawer in their house, right? And there's just crap in there, and there's wires, and everything's just wrapped up, against each other. It's the same thing in our financial lives. So to speak to that entry point, when I talk to people about just, hey, we're going to get in there, we're going to get under the hood, we're going to see what you got, and we're going to start to organize it first, right? Then we're going to figure out what decisions need to be made. Joe's always, said, we have to figure out what the most important decision that we can make first is. And let's take that step, let's make that decision, and then let's step back and reevaluate and see what's next, right? So yeah, there's a lot of vulnerability in there with people, and you have some pretty crazy conversations. There's a reason I have a couch here in my office. Sometimes you have to play therapist a little bit, right? Because you also have to understand too that a traditional advisor doesn't necessarily want to have these conversations. And so, every problem is supposed to be solved with an insurance or an investment product in this world, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're opening the door and saying, we're going to get you prepared to do that work, right? And that's why, that's why we had to develop the online stuff, because there's so much work that goes into that. It's tough to scale it, right?
And and so another aspect about that with the vulnerability and having these conversations is, frankly, this stuff wasn't written out. This stuff was not, when I got into the business 15 years ago, I would ask older veteran advisors, why do we do the decisions we do? And they never had a response. There was no reason as to why we make one decision versus another. And so I would read, being young, I would try to read, the literature, and I would find these different arguments and people arguing for this or against that. And I would just seek to understand why. And what I found out was nobody knows why we're making any of the decisions we're making. We're just making decisions because it's the conventional way of doing it, but nobody knows where the conventional ways came from or why that they exist, or even if they should exist. We just know that they're here. So what happened was I made my own fair share of financial mistakes. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, so like I learned all of this phased process. I learned it not because I read it somewhere and I'm like, oh man, this is really good, let's start a business on it. We learned it through the School of Hard Knocks. And so when we're talking to people, we are not talking to them from an ivory tower. We're talking to them. Yeah, we're just like you. We've been there. We know. Like, I always joke about the book that I got when I first started my career. I went to the library and got the book that, mistakes you could make in your life. And I just started on page 1.
I've read that book a couple times.
My notes, my annotations. Let me repeat that one again. Make sure I fully understand why that's a screw up new. So when you do that, you leave this trail of tears behind you, and you still have to clean it up because the cavalry's not coming, right? So all of these approaches, people aren't talking to John and I because we've had everything figured out and everything in our life was perfect. We can talk to people and identify with them because we've been there. We know what it's like. We know what it's like to feel that pinch. We know what it's like to begin to grow. We know what it's like to feel that, success. And so it's like, we can talk. So part of it just isn't what we're doing as much as it is who we are as people, which is true for any industry,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So when you're talking to people, and I mean, for me, like it's comforting, very comforting to know that up until this conversation, most of the financial experts that I've talked to didn't really know what they're talking about. So thanks for that.
You feel better now.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yep.
But for somebody who might be questioning what advice they may have or the decisions they've made or whatever, what's one piece of advice? Like, where should everybody start in terms of just building like thinking towards the future? Because I want to go on a vacation now, but I also want to start a business, but I also et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what do I do for somebody like myself?
Let me handle that one, or you?
It's a cash flow question.
Yeah,
might as well grab it.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It's there's really two things. I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you two.
Bonus.
Yeah, it's the bonus. I like looking at things qualitatively and quantitatively. Okay, so one is the quality, one is the numerics and the tangible aspect. So the tangible one is focus on your cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is what is so significantly important. And a lot of questions will come down to cash flow. Should I pay off debt or should I save? Listen, if you don't have any money, don't be spending what little extra money you have paying off debt. Mm-hmm. The reason you go into debt is because you don't have any money. So save. So don't go paying extra on credit cards, for instance. Focus on your cash flow. Build up that cash flow, because as you've got a strong cash flow, that is going to turn into money in savings. That's going to turn into decreased debt. It's going to turn into the ability to invest. So if you don't know where else to go to your cash flow first. That just makes the most amount of sense.
And I will say, obviously, we understand math and how it doesn't seem to make sense from, well, you're paying this amount of interest on your credit cards, so why would it make more sense to put it in a savings account? But again, this is a behavior issue, okay? Phase zero is a mindset issue, right? And so again, as Joe said, and as I say this 12 times a day, every day, the reason that you're in debt is because you don't have access to dollars, right? So we're going to put you in a position that you have access to dollars. I don't care that your savings account isn't making any money. I don't care that, you could get a better rate of return if you throw all your money in crypto. I don't care about any of these things at this moment while we're having this conversation. All I care about is that savings account bumps up a little bit every time you get paid. That's what we care about here. Yes. Now go with your next thing.
So to do that, you got to focus on your cash flow.
Yep.
The second thing is, or the part of number one, only the qualitative aspect of this, is make sure that what you're doing matches with who you are. Mm-hmm. If there is something that someone is telling you to do that it does not make sense for who you are, don't do it. The way that I invested in the past is different than the way that I invest now. There are some things that are just a matter of who you are as a person. If someone is telling you decisions, like I hear this is a real common one, is like never go into debt. Okay. And then you'll have other people that'll say, well, why would I ever use anybody else's money than somebody else's money? or you'll have the guy or the gal that's made it to a certain level, and they'll say, man, if you want to get rich, put your money all in stocks. That's how I made my millions. And then, of course, you'll have their buddy who's a real estate investor who will say, man, if you want to get rich, put your money in real estate because God ain't making any more land. The person that made it in entrepreneurship, man, if you want to make money, get into business. That's where it's all at, right? So the way that we do things, it's not a set way. It has to match who you are and what your personality is. And if it doesn't match those things, then you're not going to make it work anyway because it doesn't align with your own thinking processes. So sometimes we got to quit looking at things simply clinically and just as what's tangible and looking at a rate of return and measuring it with somebody else's rate of return. Sometimes you got to look at things a little bit more abstractly and say, I just don't like doing that and I don't want to. And you don't. And then it just cleans out your life just a little bit more. So those would be both of the number one things that I would offer. Focus on yourself, focus on your cash flow. And then the other stuff can flow from both of those.
Y'all are kind of rebels. I love it. This is, I'm telling you, like you were, I know that you said some things that are so in alignment with, the way that I think, but you said a lot of things also that are really in alignment with the way that Corey thinks. So this was really educational and also entertaining. So thank you so much. We need to wrap up because y'all have taken way more time than we were planning on giving you. We were going to give you like 5 minutes and you've taken almost 25. So good job. Can you tell our listeners how they can find you and if there's anything you want to shamelessly plug?
You can find us at Degroff Financial. That's company's Instagram and Facebook. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Clubhouse as John Degroff.
I'm on as Joe Degroff.
Yeah. Our parents taught us a lot of things. Creativity was not one of them. So.
Well, you got the creativity from somewhere. So did I hear you say that you have a Phase 0 course coming out?
We do, actually. It's in the final processes right now, getting the domains and things ported over. And hopefully here in the next few days, we'll be able to drop that. It's going to be enliveningmoney.com. Yes.
Excellent. Well, I think that I'll definitely be enrolling in that just to see what y'all have come up with. And I'm sure I will learn some things along the way. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an absolute pleasure. I'm really, really glad that you said yes to this and decided to come on the show. Thanks to our listeners. We love when you tune in, and you can find out all the information about Joe and John in our show notes. We promise to tell you everything there is to tell.
And you can connect with us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel. Go check that out and reach us and find out all the information you need through sbpace.com.
Yep. And while you're out on the internets, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and like us and give us a review. 1 star, 5 star, whatever it is that you want to give us, we're going to take it because we love feedback.
And if you want to be on the podcast or if you have a topic you want us to cover, go to sbpace.com. We've got a form out there. You can fill that out. Let us know. Don't forget to purchase our book, Seriously Now What? A Small Business Guide to Disaster Preparedness. You can find the link on our website. It's a #1 bestseller on Amazon. There is a digital workbook download on our site. And if you've read it, please like it and give us a review.
I know I listened to everything you just said, but did you say the name of the book?
I did.
Okay, just checking. I'm Julie.
And I'm Corey.
And this was BizQuik, helping small businesses across America.